It's a full team now. We're back in one fell swoop to keep you in the loop with great scoops. Well, I couldn't complete that after thinking about it. But good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and of course, you know I never do it alone. I have my colleagues, Kadi and Jeffrey. Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Well, it's cold this morning. You might need to get some soup. That'll help you recoup. I promise you we're not dupes.
Dependable Coyote, thank you.
Good morning. Some days you just have to, just stress down, take it easy. And I think today is one of those days. I'm Coyote Okikilu.
Because I love Asun. I don't know about any scoop they are scooping and cooking. Whatever it is they are cooking, let it end up as Asun. That's the most brilliant.
Come on, Jeffrey.
Yes.
At 7 a.m., Asun is already in the
It's
mix.
a good weather for pepper soup.
Asun is not pepper soup, by the way.
It isn't, but it has the ingredients of pepper soup.
Spice.
The
So
spice.
what kind of pepper soup do you like? Fish, meat?
Of course.
That's a very good
Punch
question,
and kill.
actually. I'm not a fan of pepper soups, actually.
Just before you join us in the kitchen, good morning. I'm Jeffrey.
I don't know how that happened.
No, it's good because mornings like this, you have many choices. And I don't know. Look, we're not from the West where we wake up, where we've been influenced. Let's say that for a reason, for context. Wake up, want to drink tea and all of those
In
things.
the very tiny teacup.
Yeah, and that tiny teacup and all of that. I learned whilst I was in secondary school that when you're drinking some of those teas in those tiny teacups, for people who understand etiquette and all of that, as long as you keep it open, you'll keep pouring. So if you feel you're done, you put in the sauce and turn it upside down.
Right.
But all of that is for the West. Here, what do we eat? Pepper soup can go for it. That's why I'm a big fan.
Well, speaking of tea, in these parts, we don't do small teacups, but we do big bowls. And we love to sit on the floor and have our meals, a communal way of living.
Confession.
Well, totally unashamed to confess that, Jeffrey. But more and more, we have to reconsider the measure of that tea that we take in the light of the circumstances, because everything hinges around one particular commodity. We know about the continuing increase in the pump price of petrol. And, when petrol sneezes, everyone catches cold. Talk about price of food, it hinges on the price of petrol. Talk about transportation, also on the price of petrol. Talk about the amount of money that you have in your pocket for all your bills. It also hinges on the price of petrol. So while we await the announcement in the inflation figures, in just about a week from now, we of course know what it's going to look like. Just how much are you buying petrol? How much is your, accommodation costs right now? Such things that we want the leadership to reflect upon at this time, because leadership derives its legitimacy from the popular will of the people, and it increasingly looks like the will of the people is not aligning with leadership right now. It looks like the people are looking leaner while the leadership is looking fatter at this time. Calls for sacrifices are not particularly balanced, with the example put forward by the leadership. We can't talk enough about these things. We must keep the conversation alive to demand accountability. We keep talking about the energy security component of the reforms put forward by this administration, but there must also be the affordability, component of the energy security. Just something that we need to reflect on this morning, guys.
It's a mixed bag, really. And they always say that petrol smells in literally everything because it impacts the price of things. So in your food, there's a smell of petrol in it. In transport, there's obviously a smell of petrol. In production, smell of petrol. Now in rent, there's smell of petrol. In school fees now, there is, in fact, the smell of petrol is, you can literally hold it in school fees. And it just shows how important petrol is to our livelihoods, our lives and livelihoods. So it's a no-brainer when we say, well, you need to target these things that you can smell petrol in and ensure that as much as the price of petrol is going up, you give people some buffer, the basic items. We're big on that issue this morning, but guys, I have a proposal. Because a lot of times we have these conversations, we bring these issues to the fore, but it looks like it hits a brick wall from time to time. So I think it's important to get people in government, people who are policymakers, away from that office from time to time, away from that convoy from time to time, away from the air-conditioned, environment from time to time. Let them take public transport at least once a week. Take public transport once a week. I think that would be great. Nobody's going to harm you. At least you're in a city center and you govern the people. You go to other climes, you see your MPs, you see people in government, in the subway, you see them on trains, you see them just walking, jogging on the street. So I think it's important. If you get into the bus, for example, first you see how much the cost of transportation is. You note it. Transportation has increased by 100%. You put it, and you hear what people are saying about your government. You note it. I think that is a very good way to ensure that governance connects back to the people, because what it looks like is, as you said, those in government having a field day, whether you like it or not, their vehicles are filled, their convoy is complete, their meals and allowances come through. But for the people, it is not the same. So I am proposing this morning that, I don't want to call it IT or COS or whatever, but they must join public transport on a weekly basis, listen to people, see what people are going through, go to the market, and I think that is one of the best ways we can begin to change or turn the tide of governance in Nigeria.
I totally agree with both of you, and those are the things I was thinking about a few days ago. Look, I don't believe, take me on this if you want, I don't believe the president understands what is going on. President Bola Tinubu has been rich for a long time. He was the governor of Lagos State, 1999. Before then, he worked with an oil company. He lived abroad, came to Nigeria. And so when people say the governors understand, the president understand, for most part, I don't think they do in real terms, which is why Coyote is proposing what they are proposing. So my simple analogy is, he's been president, he's been governor since 1999, he left office after 8 years, and he's been influential in deciding who becomes the governor of Lagos State since then. So he's been a powerful man. And if you know anything about powerful men, you know how they are surrounded with a lot of things. At the end of the day, now he's the president of Nigeria. Perhaps he had an idea of how he wanted to better the country, but now this is blowing up in everybody's faces. I think whatever prognosis they did, this is running out of scale, literally. The calibration is going out, and no matter how anybody tries to defend it, because some of us understand a few things about numbers and economics, and we know that something defies common sense and simple economics at the end of the day. And if any economist is sincere enough, you know that the Nigerian situation appears to be very, very different, or sometimes even unique, because the same solution you appropriate in our own situation that they appropriate in others' client seem to be in the opposite direction. So I totally agree with you, Kayode, as to the fact that these leaders, if it's possible for the president himself, to begin to listen to the people directly, watch a bit of television, go out to the street, maybe some kind of, quiet infiltration into the public, if you will, if that is even possible. Because if you tell me, because I've had interview with ministers, and one of the questions I ask them is that, does the president understand how Nigerians feel? They say, in fact, he doesn't enjoy, he feels the pain of Nigerians. I don't agree with you. Because by privilege is insulated from a lot of reality, and it depends on counsel. And some of these counselors is what the Holy Book calls miserable counselors, some of them, because they will advise him on the wrong thing, because he has to make a decision. And let's be fair, to be president is not an easy job. You depend on these advisors to give you direction. And now it is your responsibility to make a decision based on all of the advice you get. What if all of the counsel you get are all wrong counsel? But everybody around you say, oh, Your Excellency, you're doing well. In fact, your leadership is fantastic. That's a lie, Mr. President. The country is in a turmoil. The economy is biting hard. Before you came, people were buying fuel for less than 200 naira. I remember when I go to fuel station, I don't even know how much a liter of fuel costs before you came, because I just tell them fill my tank. And I have an idea of how much it will end. The other day, I put in about four times the amount I used to fill my tank, and it did not fill my tank. That's how bad and crazy things are. So if anybody is telling you your government is doing well, they are lying. So whatever you have to do to fix this country, Mr. President, do it now. Because this is legacy you're building. And one of the questions we always ask for the people that are advising you, Mr. President, is how long can this be? Give us 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Nobody is saying anything. Everybody's saying it's a temporary pain for gain for later. We need to be alive to gain tomorrow. That's the message from Nigerians. And I think this is the only service we can give to you as president. If you don't take it, good luck.
Unintended there.
Hard
Reminds
words
me of
there,
former President Goodluck Jonathan. And petrol was, yes, 200 plus at that point. April, 200 plus. So imagine times...
230
yes.
at most.
So imagine times 4, 5.
And at
I said
that
my tank was not full.
And at
with
that,
3 times the
What you
money.
used to say?
What I used to, I just go to the filling station, I say, fill the tank. I don't, there was a time I didn't know how much a liter of, I just have an idea, it's less than 200. Fill it.
And at that time, Nigerians had been stretched to the limit.
on.
You know, just imagine what the situation looks like now. I read stories in the newspapers today of people who are dying because they're unable to get money to buy food. And these are real stories. But that's where we are starting from this morning as Nigerians continue to groan beneath the weight of the new petrol price regime and seeming continuing scarcity. Transportation costs have gone up as a result by more than 300%, while state governors have begun proposing a reduction in work days to cushion the impact on the pockets of workers. Let's get a sense of the impact of these reforms and the practicality of the alternatives available or unavailable.
That's not all we're talking about today. We'll also touch on the campaign against excessive, please pay attention, excessive consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. Yes, a lot of people are in this WhatsApp group, by the way. And the push for a pro-health SSB tax, as it's called, that can compel a bit of lifestyle changes. This vis-a-vis the argument that a significant increase in tax may lead to job losses and contribute to the challenges of already struggling economy. So it's more like a two-edged sword. We need to pick the side we want to fall on for a better tomorrow.
And on the softer side of things, when love for sports and creativity combine for content creation, you can bet the result is what you can call an ultimate entertainment experience that you may consider worthwhile for mental health, particularly amidst these challenging times. So today, we're bringing you the man that's behind those sports kits, like the one you're seeing on your television, that get you cracking when you visit your favorite social media app. Mobike Chibogu, that we know as Coachee, joins us today for what promises to be an interesting conversation, guys.
Indeed, it's a bumper package. I say it with my full chest.
Welcome back,
I don't care what Jeffrey is going to say.
Welcome back.
It's a bumper package.
I leave you in peace. I'm not going to stress you on that anymore.
Please stress me. So it's incomplete anyway if you're not part of it. So we invite you to be a part of the show by commenting on all our social media platforms. Go to X right away, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and the handle is at CTV Morning Brief. Well, our hand of fellowship is temporarily unavailable today, but we're working to get it back very soon. So you can also send us your questions and other content that you consider worthwhile for the program. After this time out, the Morning Brief will continue unfolding with top stories. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Brief. And we start on a cheery note today with news that the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, Comrade Joe Ajaero, has been released by the Department of State Services, DSS. An official of the NLC confirmed this to our correspondent earlier today, and will bring you details as this news continues to unfold. And earlier on yesterday, the NLC had demanded the immediate and unconditional release of its president, Joe Ajaero, before midnight, which has since elapsed. The National Administrative Council of the Congress made this demand and others after an emergency meeting to address the arrest and detention of Comrade Joe Ajaero by the DSS. Recall that he was arrested at the Abuja airport while on his way to the United Kingdom to attend a congress where he would have represented the interest of Nigerian workers. Mr. Benson Upa, the head of publicity of the Congress, spoke with Channels Television yesterday.
I want to tell you that the security agencies are coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor. That is the present practice. So it amounts to sixpence and CC to say it is not the it is not the DSS that arrested him. It is the Office of National Security Advisor. I am not aware that ONSA has a squad independently of the other arms, NIA, DIA, DSS. I mean, you name them, and others. So I'm not aware that that ONSA has a unique squad. If they do have, that to be quite new to me. So all we know is that Comrade Joe Ajaero has been arrested and is being held against his wish by the Nigerian state. That is what I know. It is in the character of a jittery state to embark on this kind of journey, harassing people, intimidating people, in order to have the clear path of way to continue with their obnoxious policies. But I want to tell you that NLC will not be swayed. NLC will not be distracted.
Let's tell you again that the president of the NLC, Comrade Joe Ajaero, has been released by the Department of State Services, DSS. Operatives of the Department of State Services, DSS, had also yesterday stormed the office of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, in Abuja. The Deputy Director of SERAP, Mr. Kola Wole Oluwadare, confirmed the situation to Channels Television, stating that no formal invitation was given to them before and after the raid, and they have no idea why the operatives raided their office. SERAP had recently given a 48-hour ultimatum to President Bola Tinubu, asking him to instruct the NNPC Limited to reverse the hike in the price of petrol or face litigation. Of course, there's also been a reaction by the DSS that this operation was not a raid.
They identified two individuals, a woman and a man, who came to our Abuja office today and identified themselves as from the DSS, Department of State Security. And they said they were looking for the director or the deputy director. And they said when they were, of course, asked by our staff who were on ground why they were there, they didn't give any particular reason. So they stepped out. The lady stepped out, made some phone calls, and then came back in and also asked if there's any other person that they can speak with, because I wasn't around. So they said no, but that if they would drop their details or even send an official invitation, then we'll be able to honor him. So my colleagues checked and they saw that they came out in two trucks. One of them was an Toyota Hilux truck, and that after they left the office, they stayed outside for a while. But after a while, they drove off. And all this happened, I think, between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. This morning. Presently, we do not know whether any of the operatives are still within the vicinity, but the vehicles have driven off. This is simply one of those incidents that show clearly, beyond a doubt now, that there is a severe constriction of the civic space. Not necessarily because of anything specifically we've said or done, but basically because of transparency and accountability. I cannot recall any specific instance that might have caused this, but it would not be unrelated with SERAP's consistent advocacy for transparency, accountability, and good governance.
Away from the drama from yesterday now, the Nigeria Customs Service, NCS, has seized smuggled petroleum products worth 447 million naira through the Operation Whirlwind. The Comptroller General of the service, Mr. Adewale Adeniyi, who was speaking at a meeting in Abuja, appealed for the cooperation of key players as over 230 million naira is spent monthly to conduct the exercise. Meanwhile, the National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, attributes the instability of the naira to the activities of smugglers. Now, outside our shores, a busy bridge in northern Vietnam collapsed after being hit by Super Typhoon Yagi, which has killed more than 60 people since making landfall on Saturday. Dascham footage showed the moment of the Phong Chau Bridge in the Phu Tho province gave way on Monday, plunging several vehicles into the water below. Searches were underway for 13 people. The storm has wreaked havoc across the north of the country, with flooding and landslides leaving millions of people without power over the weekend. Although it has now weakened into a tropical depression, authorities have warned Yagi will create more disruption as it moves westwards. More than 240 people have been injured by the typhoon, which brought winds of up to 203 kilometers per hour and is Asia's most powerful storm so far this year. And in sports news, Super Eagles interim head coach Augustine Eguavon has shared his thoughts ahead of Nigeria's crucial 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Rwanda, set for today at the Stade Amahoro in Kigali. The former CAR agent defender, who also serves as the Nigeria Football Federation Technical Director, emphasizes that the Super Eagles will approach the Wasps with the utmost respect while remaining focused on securing all 3 points. Eguavon said, quote, "We have the quality of players who can play different styles of football, different systems and formations. So whatever formation we choose tomorrow, we have the personnel to execute it effectively." Eguavon acknowledged also that the high expectations from fans and the nation will hopefully be surpassed. And that's it on the major stories for this morning. But what are some of your own thoughts to the big stories? Kadi joins me now for a review. Hello again, Kadi.
Well, Bukola, it's a day after all of the drama, as you put it yesterday, first with the NLC president, Joe Ajero, and with Sarah. But the details are getting clearer by the day. We referred to Air Peace releasing a statement about it being mentioned in the arrest of the NLC president, Joe Ajero, saying that, well, they had written a petition a long time ago that was not acted upon, a petition which they withdrew. So they find it quite curious to hear that this is now what the security operatives are now acting on. Exactly.
Acting on, yeah. Thank you for those
eventually,
words.
that's on the one hand. Now, Sarah talking about the visit of the DSS to their offices. There's been a lot of reactions, but let's start with the NLC president, Joe Ajero's case. Now, by the way, he has gone through a lot in this tenure of his. Remember what played out in Imo
State.
Him being attacked and beaten, that happened. And we've seen consistently him being requested to appear before the police over investigation into one of the tenants at the NLC headquarters. So it's been quite a lot for Joe Ajero. But this first comment on Joe Ajero's arrest and eventual release by the DSS is coming from Big Setter, who says Nigeria security agencies know how to create drama about irrelevant things, where people are sponsoring bandits with billions of dollars. Politicians, this user says, are stealing and laundering our money. So for this user, maybe more important things for the security operators to face?
Well, we may not particularly refer to these as irrelevant. We may urge the security agents to be balanced in their investigation, to be thorough rather in their investigation. But you know, these issues that this person commenting refers to are just as important. Bandits and their operations. But this next talking point is from D. Olawale, who says, it's deeply concerning to hear about the arrest of Ajero, especially given that the he was on his way to representing the NLC at an important international conference. Advocating for better minimum wages and safer working conditions is crucial for the welfare of workers.
So let's jump to Serap's office, quite literally, and that visit by the DSS to Serap's office. You may have heard the Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, speaking to what exactly played out. But what do you have to say? OJ, that's Juba Oluwaseun, is the first user that comments on this, at least right here. Says, before jumping to conclusions about the DSS, let's try to understand what is happening. Well, that's the tricky part. We've heard from Sarah. To understand what's happening, you usually hear from all of the sides. Now, we've not heard from the SSS, DSS, whatever the case may be on this. So it's a bit tricky to understand. At least we know what Sarah has said, and that's what we can hold on to right now.
And Nebuchadnezzar is the next speaker here, and he says, them don't invade people where they give FG ultimatum to reverse fuel price. We are in soup. Well, practically saying they have invaded the office of people who are trying to keep government accountable. And he says, as a result, we're in trouble.
You know, the timing is really curious. I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Serap gave the ultimatum, as this user referred to, the NLC, of course. Well, they didn't participate in the End Bad Governance protest, but they've said that, well, we'll hold government accountable. And they've also given government, you know, some sort of ultimatum to reverse, the hike in the price of petrol. So all of that is quite curious. But let's move on to this next conversation. And it's about the Communications Commission, NCC, launching a device management system to register all mobile phones in Nigeria. Hold on. This is not SIM card registration. But let's look at what you are saying about this. Everestus Ordinakeze has the first comment saying, well, if this is well executed and for security purposes, it's not a bad policy. Cell phones are registered, monitored, and regulated all over the world. Until there's an abuse, there is no cause for alarm.
Oh, well, we just must ask that what's the point of all of the registrations? We have the NIN, we have the voter card, we have the driver's license, we have even the state registration procedures as well. You have your international passport. To what end? I couldn't resist the urge to ask.
And it's okay to ask, Bukola, because all of these layers of identification, you had to queue for it. Sometimes for hours, sometimes you had to come back the next day just to
I forgot to mention BVN.
Exactly. So it's understandable.
There's been the BVN-NIN linkage. And still we have so much, problems with banditry, kidnapping, and payment of ransom. Where does this all lead?
Big question.
Yeah. Well, this next speaker is Aquila of Kogi, who says, in just a few words, this a commendable one from the NCC. We shall get better.
There you go. So let's know what you think about this new policy. We remember how SIM registration was said to have been the silver bullet for insecurity, kidnapping, and all of that. So we see bandits posting on TikTok, showing off, and all of that. First, having access to internet. Having a mobile phone, then operating a social media account, and then putting... Let's go to the next one. And this one concerns Labour Party. And it's the fact that the Aburi-led Labour Party has withdrawn the automatic ticket for two major leaders in the party. The presidential candidate for the 2023 election, Peter Obi, and the governor of Abia State, Alex Otti. There's been a rumble in the jungle of the Labour Party, as they say, as jungle matured now. Well, first user has this to say, Nigeria, my country. It's unfair to give automatic tickets to any candidates, this user says. If you think you are the most popular in a party, then mobilize your followers to vote for you in the primary election.
Well, let's leave that for the Labour Party to decide. Parties do this. They come up with consensus candidates time and again, although that doesn't go without its many squabbles and leads to internal democracy or lack of, democracy issues within those parties. But this next one is from Kevin, who says, automatic ticket is not even needed. Let it be contested. Yeah.
So we'll see how this plays out within Labour parties, like one drama after the other. But let's turn our attention to petrol prices. So lots of ideas have been put out there as to how we can bring down the price of petrol. Imagine you're earning your daily 2K. So your daily ticket can only get you 2 liters of petrol right now. And that doesn't work for people living hand to mouth. So the TUC is calling for some sort of special FX rate for NMPCL, saying that this will crash petrol prices. So Safety Cabal has a first comment saying, special FX rates, who will pay the balance now that foreign exchange is floated? The analogy, no work. Just say subsidy should be brought back. And you know what? Bukola, you have the next one of this.
But might I ask that even now, is the Naira not being defended?
Right.
Just a question for the CBN and the NNPCL at this moment. Adewale Damilare says, why the need for FX when the Dangote refinery is ready to roll out fuel? Good question.
So, how many days now since Dangote refinery announced the rollout? A week?
A week now.
And well, I've not heard the product are in filling stations just yet. I mean, do the math. It only takes about how many hours from there to the filling station. So what exactly is playing out here? We'll get deeper into this, but let's move on to this one that got a lot of Nigerians talking. And there's an image we'd like to show you. The Federal Road Safety Corps, that's the FRSC, impounded an overloaded vehicle. So I don't know if this is an overloaded vehicle or this is just load, because I don't see the vehicle. I just see the load. So I think they arrested the load. Because, come on, Kola, what's going on here?
Well, my people in Abeokuta will just have to pardon me, but this reminds me of the name called Aderuboko.
Right?
Please pardon me from home.
And this is what we see from time to time on our road. Some of them travel at night. But again, FRSC, you didn't just arrest an overloaded vehicle, you arrested the load, because I don't see the vehicle. So this naturally got Nigerians talking. And this is against all, road or traffic laws. First user is Sinzo_B, that's double K factor, saying not just the driver that should be arrested, the loaders, along with the people that tied all this stuff together, and finally the owners of the luggages too. They all need to be arrested, this user says.
But kind of beyond the humor, this is just a one-off arrest. We see these things every day.
Every day.
Some of us post videos, funny videos of them on our social media platforms. But what really are the officials doing to improve capacity to go about after them, not after the SUVs that can pay fines and the other smaller vehicles that are, perhaps, involved in hailing, taxi companies, and, just deny them the opportunity to make a daily honest living. So these vehicles must be taken off the road so that the roads can be safer for Nigerians.
Absolutely. The next user, Elsarat Shitu, says that this is to maximize profit and minimize the expensive fuel. Yeah.
That's another way to look at it.
Right.
And
does that mean you should then do the wrong thing? For the right reasons? Is there anything like that? I don't know. Goes on to say the country should expect more of this, quote, craziness from citizens. People will do all they can to survive. But we've been seeing this before. I remember seeing this even decades ago. So I don't know if it's as a result of petrol prices then. What is illegal, what is unlawful is unlawful. We should get to that point.
Well, and that's it with some of your talking points, interesting talking points, by the way, and we urge you to keep them coming. Perhaps we'll be able to accommodate more before the end of the program. But after this time out, we're starting off with the first leg of our conversation today, and we're looking at the impact of the new price regime for petrol on your pocket, on your work. Perhaps you work in the civil service. So join us again. We'll be right back.
welcome back. It's now time to talk about the impact of fuel subsidy, or not subsidy now, fuel price hike or increase in pump price of petrol on our pockets, on our businesses, on our lives and welfare in general. Nigerians are literally groaning, trying to scrape up survival wherever they can find it. But is there a way out? We need to find out. We ask the people that we understand they are in the know as to what is going on in the country, as well as possible ways on how to manage expectation. We're being joined in the program by an economist and energy expert, Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel from our Abuja studios. And right here in our Lagos studio, we're being joined by Mr. Michael Adele. He's a human capacity development professional and public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
All right, Mr. Kelvin, so let's start with you. Right now, Nigerians are looking for as many explainers as possible, because it's like they wake up every day, they're asking themselves a lot of questions. But you're an economist, you understand a bit of how these numbers play out. But for the average Nigerian, life is not fair. Being a Nigerian right now, given the twin policy that some people have saying is draconian, others are saying is necessary for now so that we can have a better life tomorrow. And it's just a potpourri of ideas being pushed on the public. Maybe you help us begin by breaking it down and what we're dealing with at the moment.
Joe, thank you so much. Well, I don't want to go too way back, to talk about the fact that in 2006, Dangote applied for Port Harcourt refinery. It was won, and that was reversed because share sale agreement documents were not signed by President OBJ, distinguished President OBJ, and late Musa Yar'Adua came and reversed the sale, and then the dream to build a refinery started. And in the last 18 years since then, NNPC has spent 12 trillion in turnaround maintenance and doesn't have anything to show for it. And currently, NNPC keeps spending nearly 100 billion naira every year in welfare benefits for staffs of dead refineries that are not working. And you've had a situation where the fact that Nigeria currently imports anywhere around 800,000 metric tons of dirty fuels from Eastern Europe that are blended and cured mostly in Malta, in Central Europe, and brought into Nigeria to an unsuspecting public. And exchange rate has gone from 195 when Jonathan left. We went to 520, came to 365. And between 2019 and 2023, the Central Bank of Nigeria, under the immediate past governor, printed 17.3 trillion naira in ways and means to finance budget deficits and direct intervention programs. And that was not backed by assets or reserves. The naira dropped significantly. And in his attempts to peg the naira, to prevent, a spiral of what you've seen, mostly from exchange rate induced inflation, he went around doing all kinds of FX swap deals with two of the external asset managers of the Central Bank of Nigeria that led to exposures of about $7.5 billion US and annual interest payments of anywhere around $800 million US. And you had like an impairment on the balance sheet of the central bank, and the net external reserves dropped to negative. The current management of the Central Bank of Nigeria came, and the management has been a little bit better. Most of the FX forwards to banks in Nigeria from clients who requested for FX has been sorted. $2.544 billion is still outstanding. So I'll tell you what, Geoff, there are two major factors that control the price of PMS: crude oil price, exchange rate. Crude oil price hasn't moved significantly. It's still between the range of $78 to $85 per barrel. Exchange rate, however, has moved. And because Nigeria is exposed in terms of importation, what you have is that you've seen the effect of that FX exposure on the price of PMS. Now, the question is, should we do backward integration to ensure that the handling cost for bringing petrol price goes off? Should we pay attention to sections 109 that provides for the option of selling crude oil in Naira. Some people have said, oh, what about the FX loss if Nigeria sells crude oil in Naira? And I say, look, if you sell crude oil in Naira, the FX loss will be compensated from the commercial refiner in Nigeria exporting non-transportation fuels and the excess of what Nigeria consumes out, and bringing back that FX as net export proceeds to the originating banks. It will also be compensated by the fact that currently, in the monthly demand for FX in Nigeria, about 30 to 35% of that demand actually comes from petroleum product imports and crude oil imports. So before Dangote refinery started this year, Nigeria didn't have to deal with the issue of demand for FX to import crude oil. Because of the failure of NNPC, you know all the modified carrier agreements and crude oil swap arrangement it has to be able to pay IOCs carry oil, to be able to pay international traders who bring in petrol to Nigeria in a value trading mismatch. Okay. The crude oil that should go to commercial refiners is now used for crude oil swaps. So Dangote has been having, since it started, to import the deficits from the US, from South America. And pay attention to the fact that in 2009, the US was one of the highest importers of Nigeria's crude oil. Obama came up with his plan and said that he wants to wean off America from depending, like he said, on volatile regimes who are major crude oil producers. He set his engineers to task. They came up with deep fracking technology, hydraulic fracking, mostly in New Orleans and in Alabama and in Texas, which are the states that produce the most crude oil in America. America went from being a net importer of crude oil, spending about $1 billion a day. Today, America produces 13.3 million barrels of crude oil. And the US has a refining capacity of 6.4 million barrels per day. Okay? So, listen, our problem is the fact that we refuse to learn from history and we keep doing the same thing in the same way and we expect to get a different result. Nigeria now has a commercial refinery that is the 7th largest refinery in the world, that has a Nielsen complexity index of 10.5, which means it can refine any grade of crude oil in the world. Dangote refinery has started refining PMS. Why are we not off-taking PMS from Dangote refinery? The scarcity of petrol you see around Nigeria is because NNPC owes traders $6.8 billion US in modified carrier agreements. It doesn't have the crude oil to pay. It doesn't have the cash to pay. The loan it was going to collect through reserve-based lending that Standard Chartered was doing book running for of $2 billion was to borrow new money to refinance old money, to draw down on existing loans, so that the people who bring in PMS into Nigeria won't stop supplying PMS. But the question is, why would you keep importing PMS when there's a refinery in Nigeria producing PMS? That's the question we have to ask the government. That's the question Nigerians need to ask the government.
Indeed, and it seems as if we're in a limbo right now because we're waiting for answers from the government as to the next line of action, particularly after the NNPC disclosed that, look, the other marketers can go ahead and off-take petrol from Dangote. We await answers from the NNPCL Group Managing Director and from the Minister of State for Petroleum. And indeed, from Mr. President, of course, who also directed that meeting brokered by the Vice President and other officials. Well, let's bring it home now to the impact of all of these uncertainties and indeed the continuing increase in the pump price of petrol on the Nigerian worker. As I bring it home to you now, sir, Mr. Dele, more and more state governors are considering the work from home policy for workers. But what would the impact of that be on efficiency within the civil service? Yes, indeed, it would cushion the impact on the pocket of Nigerian workers. It would reduce the amount spent on transportation. But we're talking about a civil service where they're dealing with sensitive government documents. Sometimes some of those tasks they perform have to be hands-on, and people are waiting for service delivery, on the other side of the divide. What do you envision to be the impact of this increasing resort to work from home policy?
Thank you very much, Bukola, and good morning, Nigerians. I have to take it this way. It's a policy or it's a system which I call robbing Peter to pay Paul. If I'm an employer and I have 10 employees working for me, and I tell them because of the increase in the cost of fuel, which is going to have impact on transportation and some other social economic amenities around the country, work from home. That tells me that I'm trying to shed off my own cost as a businessman and put that cost on the head of my employees. Because if you're going to be working from home, you're going to have to put on your laptops. You're going to have to put on the lighting in your home. You have to put on a lot of the electrical appliances in your home to be able to work, your fans and everything. What that tells me is my costs, the cost of the employees is going to go up. Because I'm going to have to pay more for lighting. I'm going to have to eat more, eat quite a lot of things. So at the end of the day, I'm shortchanging the social life of my employees because they're going to have to pay more. So it's not a good policy at all. The government has put the burden on every Nigerian, and they have to go back into the box. Now, look into the box again and say, right, the policy we put out into the public is not working because the economy is going to be weakened. We're going to be having not even inflation, hyperinflation as we go, because the cost of goods and services is going to go up because the two major things that drive this economy is power, oil and gas. Okay. Now, if the price of power just went up about a few months ago, the GENCO, the DISCO are forcing every estate, every community to go on ban A. So the prices are shoot up. Now, just a few days ago, or last week, the price of PMS has just gone up again. Now, a lot of companies are going to be shutting down. The base and the economic stability of every economy are the micro businesses in the economy. If you're looking at the big ones, like the multinationals, how many of them do we have in the country? When all the micro businesses are shutting down now, there's going to be increase. Already we have huge percentage of unemployment in the country. We're going to have more. That is the scary part of it. So we're actually sitting on a time bomb, on a powder ready to be explode. And when they explode, we won't be able to handle it. Unemployment is going to go up drastically, pathetically. A lot of business is going to be shutting down. Okay? Now, the ordinary people that actually sell the foods on the street won't be able to sell this because the amount of money they're going to be spending on transportation to get their food from point A to point B is going to go up. So now they're going to have to add those costs on top of on their goods. And who's going to buy them? So we're actually in a very situation that if we don't address the situation now, then we're going to be in limbo. Remember the last time I came in here, I did an analysis when we were talking about the minimum wage. And I told the government, I said, look, for a household, a wife and a husband and 3 children to survive in this economy, they're going to have to be on 180,000. And I broke down the analysis, the cost of food, transportation, housing, electricity, and all that, public school for their kids. But where do you find ourselves today? 70,000. Now, we're still trying to look into how can we manage that. A lot of the states, subnationals, are still saying they can't afford to pay the 70,000 minimum wage. Now, here we go again. The price of PMS has gone up. Where are we going to find ourselves? It's an alarming rate.
I want us to try to put in context what the president has said about this recent price hike, saying that it's a hard decision for development, amongst other decisions that his government has had to make. So we're trying to balance the thinking of government with the reality of this, because we just like to imagine that government is rational, right? Government is thinking right. Government has the best interest of people at heart. That is what we like to assume, right? So we give government a benefit of the doubt. And I'd like to bounce this, both of you, Mr. Kevin Emmanuel. Let me see. You can comment on this first. So when the government, the president says that, these are hard decisions for development. I don't know if you caught that, but that was what was said. about this recent hike. Let's just think like government here. Pardon me, do you think that this government has the best interest of Nigerians at heart? Because if you're saying development, then development should be for the people. But from these decisions, does this look like a government that has the best interest of the people at heart? Is there any way you can look at it that you come to that conclusion?
Kayode, I like data because data tells you a story, okay? Nigeria spends about $28 billion every year on its energy basket. About PMS diesel takes anywhere around 18 of that $28 billion. Total imports for Nigeria every year is about $72 billion. So you know that 30 or 35% already of your import basket goes to energy, okay? Now, if you spend around 7 to 8 trillion naira every year in your budget, paying subsidy on 70 million liters of PMS, which I've repeatedly told the government is a lie, because the government has not provided empirical evidence to show Nigerians. And this is the reason why Dangote has said, look, there's a tracking system he has designed to track every single product that leaves the refinery to show that what the government is quoting might not be the exact picture of the reality, because the very foundation of under-recovery on PMS goes to the daily consumption that is declared by the government that is consumed. Okay? Now, if you spend money that is supposed to go to education, security, healthcare, to pay PMS subsidy, to borrow money, get interest, refinance your debt, so you look at the budget and you see that 65 to 70% of the entire budget already goes only to two line items: subsidizing PMS and paying interest on debt that is owed, over 100 trillion naira of domestic and external debt that is owed, right? And then you have a brand new refinery in Nigeria that is supposed to take that pressure for demand for FX, for importation of petroleum products into Nigeria, away from the FX market, which is key, because the FX market is a key determinant of the inflation rate you have today, which slowed down for the first time after 22 months consecutively, and then also determines the MPR rate, right? Why are you hesitating to take it? So if you look at these realities, the question you should ask is, if the government is not following logic and reason and evidence-based economics, is it really working for the best interests of Nigerians, or is it working to serve the interests of a few?
So is that a yes or no for you, looking at the data? Do you think this government is working in the best interest of Nigerians?
Looking at how NNPC has mismanaged the oil and gas sector, and looking at the fact that the president has refused to sack NNPC MD, and all the other heads of the regulatory agencies in the oil and gas sector, who are clearly not working in the interest of Nigerians, I don't think the president it shows that the president is working towards alleviating the suffering of Nigerians. I don't think so.
Mr. Adeleye, do you agree?
The evidence and the reality doesn't show.
Do you agree with him? Because you can speak for the workers and the human capital bit of it.
Absolutely, I do totally agree with him, and I'll give some instances here. The president made an announcement a few months ago about the palliatives. We had 500 billion that went into the social economic area of the economy, structural program. We had another $500 million went into education and health, so they say, and we have some going into food to be supplied, we're giving to all the subnationals. Now, my question is this: if you have the interests of the country, and I put the blames on all the apparatus working around the president, because obviously you do appoint all your essays, your SSAs and all that to go out, agencies and all that. They're not giving or feeding the president in the right direction. Because for me, a simple analysis is, you want to increase the price of PMS, you need to increase the price of power, electricity. Now, what can you do with those palliatives? Because we know from day one, every time the government said they want to give up palliatives, it doesn't get to the people. It doesn't get to the people. So all this money, the food supplies and everything, goes and stops at the box of every government officials. It doesn't get to the people. I live in this community, and I haven't seen a single grain of rice coming to market, not to talk of the money and everything. Now, why don't you do a simple policy and say, okay, Mr. Kiari, you are having difficulty or you want to increase your prices of the PMS. How much is the difference between the price you're selling it now? For example, if it's sold at, say, 587 or 568 per liter, you need to tune it up to what it is now, which is about 53%. Okay? Now, what is the differential in the cost to get it from where it is now to the next one? Okay, do not increase that price for the next 6 months. I'm going to give you this amount of money to substitute that price instead of giving that as palliatives. Go to the power supply company and say, right, do not increase your price. If we need to increase your price, what is the differential? I'll give you extra of money to actually cushion that area. Do not give, so those palliative will go across all nooks and corners of the country, because what drives this economy and every single individual in this country is power, oil and gas, because we use gas for to do our cookings, industrial gas for manufacturing, the petrol for our generators, for micro businesses, for our cars and all that. So if you can put those palliative into those sectors, instead of saying I'm giving it out because it doesn't get to the people, it will cushion the effect of this hardship that we're having now. So I don't think they're actually working in the interest of the people.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel, let's bring it back to you. And I would like you to speak to how businesses can literally manage in this situation. It's a very dire situation because we've seen businesses shut down, closed down. Some may never open again. Some may be lucky to come back upstream. And for every business that closed down, at least one person has lost a job. We can now look at how many persons that individual or that company employs. Everybody's trying to look for one creative way or the other to survive within the economy. And the government keeps promising. Well, I'm going to ask you questions on that maybe later, but let's speak from an economist point of view. What businesses can do right now to survive? Because part of why we're having this conversation is that this is our reality. Whether the government is irresponsible or responsible, or the NNPC is irresponsible or responsible, this is our reality, and we need to get moving and know what to do right now, pending where we know exactly how to fix this problem.
Geoff, what you're going to see basically is that a lot of companies are not going to commission new capital projects. People are going to stay on the sidelines and wait. It's not an easy environment to even advise businesses to go for external loans because of how unstable. There's no forward guidance from the Central Bank of Nigeria on the exchange rate. You can see that the Naira continues to drop. I think it's trading at between 1,630 and 1,645 because there's pressure on the FX market from mostly petroleum importers and also now a commercial refinery. Okay. On the side of staff welfare, it's also difficult to ask employers to increase salaries of their staffs because of how much headwind you have in the economy currently. Businesses are having to deal with higher net interest expense on loans and facilities they have. There's higher costs, so it's not an easy situation at all. So basically, you're going to have a situation where companies are just going to stay on the sidelines and wait and see how this plays out with the FX market, with the energy markets, to know where to put their capital or know whether to close down. Quite a number of businesses are going to close down, like Mr. Mike in the studio in Lagos has said. There are no easy choices. It's difficult to say because I think the rationale behind the NNPC raising the pump price to 897 in Abuja and 855 in Lagos is the fact that it's owing money. It's owing $6.8 billion. And the loan it wants to borrow of $2 billion and tie to 30,000 barrels per day, it's not panning out. Okay? So it's trying to mark up to pay its creditors. So the question you ask me is a blanket general question. It's not a specific question, but all in all, it's going to be difficult for companies to invest in new capital projects in these markets as it is right now.
And we could ask a lot of questions in that space as well. For instance, if it's owing that much, why in the last couple of years have most of NNPC stations been moribund? Those who have been supplying in that space, the petroleum space, are other retailers. But that's another matter for another time. I'd like to ask, in follow-up to Jeffrey's question, the seeming contradiction between what the administration is doing, to shore up investment back home and what is happening at home. For instance, at the just concluded China-Africa Summit, we heard the president say that you may have been hearing about, the increase in the pump price of petrol back home. These are difficult decisions that the administration must take in order to, recoup the gains later on. And the president is speaking to potential investors, but back home, the atmosphere is becoming increasingly difficult for businesses to thrive. And we've seen a number of divestments. Are you concerned about that contradiction, Mr. Emmanuel? Just in a few words so that Mr. Adeleye can also speak to it.
Well, businesses, especially if I'm going to speak for the oil and gas sector, for example, the issues around divestment is not because of what we think it is. The issues around divestment has to do with the fact that a lot of the IOCs selling off their assets, have legal liabilities, decommissioning and abandonment costs. There are issues with insecurity of pipes in Nigeria. There are issues around, lack of metering between flow station and terminal. The fact that for a lot of brownfields and greenfields, NNPC does not have the capital to put up their own share of FID, and they have to rely on what they call carried cost in oil and gas and pay back carry oil without any interest for carry tax relief that they give the IOCs for those investments. The IOCs feel it's safer to operate deep offshore because it doesn't present them with the liabilities and environmental issues and community issues that comes with dealing onshore. So if a Total or a Shell or a Mobil, for example, is going deep offshore, it doesn't have much to do with the realities that we think it is, that the Nigerian economy is. The issue here is to get crude oil production up. And for you to get crude oil production up, I've always advocated for the fact that Section 65 of the PIA says that Nigeria may move, NNPC may move from unregistered joint ventures and production sharing contract to incorporated joint ventures, where you incorporate as legal entity every joint venture you sign with an operator upstream. That way you can raise FID that is shared. And that way you can move from the model where NNPC always have to rely on the operator to put up the capital. That presents governance and transparency, and it will increase oil output. And what happens when you increase oil output is you have enough FX for the central bank to increase and meet up with its balance of payment obligations. When you stabilize the FX market, you stabilize inflation, and the MPR will begin to come down, which will present like a good situation for businesses to be able to invest in the Nigerian economy. It's a vicious cycle. Like Mr. Mike said, the bread and butter of the Nigerian economy is oil and gas. Let nobody tell us otherwise. The bread and butter is oil and gas. If the oil and gas sector does not work, the economy will not work. This is the reality we have today.
Right.
Mr. Adeleye, in a few words, the same question.
Let me speak from the perspective of a human capital development. Government policies drive the economy. Okay, now for any business to survive in this country, the government needs to have a policy that actually aid the businesses. Now, if you look at the whole thing that happens now, 70,000 minimum wage has just been put on the table. A lot of private businesses are struggling to pay that amount of money. Now, what the government can do for businesses to survive now is to look into how they touch the corporation taxes that businesses pay to them. Because if you don't do so, Mr. Bill Gates came into the country a few days ago and says we're paying too little taxes. Now, who pays the taxes? The struggle of any economy is the human capital strength. Now, if this prices goes up the way it's going up now, you're going to have a lot of businesses shutting down. A lot of workers going to have to sit back home so they don't pay taxes. A lot of businesses that are meant to be paying taxes wouldn't be able to pay the taxes because they are shutting down. Okay? Now, for us to be able to survive in this economy, the government has to bring out the policy whereby they're going to say, okay, we need to help all businesses for them to survive. The corporation taxes that you pay to us have perhaps give some businesses tax holidays, reduce corporation taxes for them to survive. If you don't do that, we're going to have multiple businesses shutting down. Now, a lot of people are going to go out of work. Tax is going to be depleted. You're going to have massive unemployment rate, and the economy is going to be in shambles. So for us to survive now, it's the government policy that drive the economy that we need to look into, and the government has to think about what policies they have to put on the table to make business to survive.
Well, I would have taken it from there to talk about the issue of rethinking our policies here, but the time, we're totally out of time. Must thank you both, gentlemen. Kelvin Emmanuel, economist and energy expert, as well as Mr. Michael Adele, human capacity development professional and public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight and for bringing perspective. We hope that the government will think through and do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We will take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to some sort of agenda setting when it comes to sweetened beverages and how the tax policy can help, better health. On the other hand, perhaps it could kill businesses. So where do we really go in between all of this? That's the conversation next. Join us again.
Welcome back. So it's time now for that all-important conversation on the campaign for an increase in SSB tax, that's sugar-sweetened beverages tax, to force lifestyle change, and of course to also perhaps direct the funding to critical sectors that need it, for instance the health sector. But there are other implications to this. To help us understand this conversation better, we have joining us on the program the Executive Director of Corporate Accountability, let me get that correctly, and Public Participation Africa, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, Mr. Akinbode. Mr. Akinbode joins us via Zoom this morning. Good morning and welcome to the program. Please unmute your microphone.
Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Good morning and welcome. It's good to have you join us. So for starters, of course, there are campaigns out there about the danger, not just from NGOs, but of course from health practitioners, about the dangers of excessive sugar. But this is deliberate, you're tying it to an increase in tax to discourage such lifestyle. But some would say, what is the data that is there to back up this campaign? So perhaps you could provide some data that you have.
Well, thank you very much. But first, let's refresh our minds about the use of taxes, because flowing from conversation that you've had this morning, it is essential that we must again remind ourselves that taxes are not just used to put burden on people. Taxes are used by government for other purposes other than revenue collection. For instance, it can be used to promote spending on certain aspects, goods and services. It can also be used to discourage people from consuming certain services and goods. It's a tool that can be used for wealth redistribution, and that takes us to why luxury goods are taxed more than essential goods. And of course, there is what we call the pro-head taxes, taxes that are used to discourage people from consuming products or food or items that are having health implications. And that is where this SSB, sugar-sweetened beverages taxes, falls into. And what do we call SSBs, or sugar-sweetened beverages? They are the basic sugary drinks that we see all around us. because they are, a source of what we call free sugar. They are easily called non-alcoholic drinks or soft drinks in Nigeria. They are bottled, they are packs, and they're just everywhere. And the reason is that in Nigeria, the overconsumption of SSB is clearly now linked to non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases cause over 24% of deaths in Nigeria. Consumption of sugary drinks is linked to cancer, it's linked to type 2 diabetes, it's linked to decay of the tooth, and several other, diseases. And because of that, governments around the world are taking measures to ensure that there is less and less consumption of these products. And as I'm talking to you, Nigeria is number 4, ranks the 4th largest consumer of SSB in the world. And that's an alarming projection that the governments, through the Fiscal Act of 2021, had to introduce a 10 naira per liter excise duty on SSBs, which is grossly insufficient. The WHO projected that, and global best practices is that such tax should be about 20% of the final retail price of that product. And we are way, way below that as at today.
So let's begin to balance out some of the arguments that we've seen so far as this issue is concerned. On one hand, it's a great move to force lifestyle adjustment so that people will live better lives and be more productive. The average lifespan of a Nigerian is still not up to 60 yet. We're hoping it's going to get better. But with the biting situation of the economy, I don't know what the numbers look like. So that's on one hand of the argument that, look, if the people are generally poor, why do you now want to endanger yourself? Because the healthcare system is not as it should be. And then out of pocket spending is quite high when it comes to our healthcare facilities and all of that. And the people, their purchasing power is low. So we can go through that entire chain of seeing that it's better to avoid this than to be sorry later. But the other side of the argument is also the fact that these are people's businesses that will be targeted one way or the other for good reasons, but it's still a business to also lubricate the economy, if it will, as it were. How do you want to balance all of this?
Well, thank you very much. There is a global principle that when there is a conflict between the health of the people, right, and commercial interests, public health will take precedence. And that actually is an objective that permeates almost every global principles. And so you will expect that the Nigerian government will also act in defense of our public health. The fact remains that most of the chronic diseases associated with sugary drinks are extremely expensive to treat. Secondly, when you look at this tax that we are asking governments to increase, it's also to be able to put money back into some of the lacks that we have in government. However, we also need to go back to very empirical data. When the Nigerian government introduced the 10 naira per liter on SSBs, a liter, the pack liter was selling them for around 300, 400 naira. The 55 cl, the common ones that we see on the road, the most common ones that we'll see was selling for 100 naira. Those brands as of today are selling for about 300 naira, 400 naira. Yet the tax on this remains 5 naira on the SSBs. So you have a situation whereby corporations will always lie to government. They will tell you that, oh, the tax, that 5 naira tax, government tax, is the one that would cause job losses. But they did not tell you, they did not hold a press briefing when they moved their price from 100 naira to 300 naira. Now, early this year, the most popular brands just declared that they are, recording over 16% profit globally, and also including Nigeria. I mean, they've declared billions of profits in June in Nigeria. And in fact, even reinvesting millions of dollars into the Nigerian economy. What that tells you is that these people are not actually giving accurate data to inform public decisions in Nigeria. Rather, they do what I call the Armageddon theory. They will tell government, we're not going to lose just jobs, we're going to, the economy is so bad, and the rest of them. But the Nigerian government should dig into the original data, the profits, the profits they are declaring in their home countries. That is where the real truth about their standing in our country is. Until today, we've not seen them scaling down on their operation. Rather, they are investing and they are reinvesting in Nigeria because there is low taxes, there are lower regulations. Nigerians are over-consuming this product. As I said earlier, we are the fourth largest consumer of these products in Nigeria. And again, I reemphasize that public health trumps economic interest anytime, because if there are no people, there won't be an economy.
This conversation is a very important one because it touches at the heart of our existence, our health. If health fails, then existence naturally fades away. By the way, we also invited the other side to this conversation to hear from some of the companies, the corporations that produce these things, but were not able to join us on the show this morning to have this, well-rounded debate for the good of Nigerians. So let's move forward. In this conversation at different layers, as has been said, there's a health component to this. There's the cost, because a lot of people will think of cost first and say, does that mean what I'm buying for 300 naira will now be sold for, I don't know, if you're increasing from 10% to over 100%? What is the figure you're looking at? Let's begin there.
So for us, what we're saying is that the tax that it will be effective to bring down reduction. I say this is not a revenue drive.
No, I understand. I understand. Just
of course.
Put that and clear that out of the way. So if they're buying it for 300 now, how much do you imagine they'll be buying it for if that tax is approved? By the way, the 2024 fiscal document has been sorted, but let's imagine it's approved. How much will the new price, what range are you looking at?
So what we are proposing, because we can't project what will be the new price. It depends on what the companies want to sell their products. Is that tax, the tax component of it will be about 20% of the final retail price. Oh. And we did an economic simulation that shows that whatever they are selling today, the tax should be about 138 naira and adjustable to inflation.
All right.
Just as I said, a fixed tax of 10 naira since 2021, though it's not the exact 10 naira of that time. So it has to be adjustable to inflation.
Right. So if they're buying for 300, perhaps more than 400. I'm just trying to piece this together, or depending on whatever comes out.
So let me just explain to you that yes, the purpose of this is to bring price increase. In fact, if there is no price increase, then we've not achieved our desired purpose. The purpose is to ensure that there is increase in prices. We do not want the companies to absorb, the taxes, so that the taxes are passed to the consumers, and then the consumers can then take a look when they are dehydrated, right. They want to drink water, then they will check and say, oh, a bottle of water is this amount, a bottle of this sugary drink is this amount, and then they will take the healthy choice.
Oh, understandable. I'm not a fan of sugar-sweetened beverages, so I'd rather do maybe my, let's move on this one. But I was just trying to get that out of the way to have a sense of the cost. But my major question is this, the health component. Now, there have been a lot of response or reaction to the report you put out and this your call. Some say that your report actually just establishes a correlation and not causation. And I'm sure you've heard that. So in terms of whether or not this is a correlation and not a causation, I'd like you to clear that air so we really know what is at play here in terms of health. And on the flip side is WHO's recommendation for sugar consumption. Where is Nigeria? Have we broken the limit or we're below the limit? Those two questions. Those are actually my original questions.
So in terms of causation, there are tons, millions and millions of research linking sugary drinks to health implications. That I think whoever is saying that, I mean, all you just need is to just put on your phone and you'll see that these drinks are the major source of free sugar. They have no nutritional value. They just add calories and calories to your diet. And when you continue to fill yourself with this diet, you will have unhealthy weight gains. And when you have unhealthy weight gains, what you begin to happen is you are then going to likely have some of those health diseases that are related to weight gains, like the cancers that I've mentioned, that is killing 75,000 Nigerians, about 120,000 new cases are recorded every year. You then begin to have type 2 diabetes. And also, let me tell you, WHO had said that, look, that there's a likelihood that over 20% of Nigerians are, if care is not taken and urgent action are not taken, die of non-communicable diseases. These are hard facts. These has been well researched and well documented, and that is no longer a subject of debate.
Just a moment, Bukola. So this is sounding like it's sounding like the issue of GMO versus organic products. Yeah, that looks like, if you want to compare argument, GMO, organic product. I'm not saying that is what it is. I'm talking about the commercial interest as against the issue of health at the end of the day, which is what we are debating. Some are saying that no matter what you do, people always go for what they want to go for. In fact, you're even creating a space for black market. So on one hand, you might have increased price to discourage the people from consuming as much as they should consume. But on the other hand, other complementary or alternatives may be available that may be affordable to the very same lower ebb of the community in terms of the population, in terms of the economic power, that may hamper what you're already trying to achieve. So if you were to advise on the average as to how government can manage this effectively, there's no perfect 100% success, I guess, in this, because the two interests are valid. One hand, health, on the other hand, commercial interest. So all of these have to work together and meet at a nexus to make us have a better society. So if you were to propose as to how effectively this can be executed and implemented such that we don't have a spin-off that can hamper our society even further, what will it be?
First, let me say that this works. It's extremely effective. There are countries around the world that have introduced this kind of levy. UK has the health promotion levy. South Africa has their own version. So many governments around the world, and the results has been very profound. You see a reduction in the consumption of unhealthy diets and then increase in the healthy diets. What we do advocate, and in the case of Nigeria, is that government should not just see these as a means of collecting revenue. Yes, government revenue is going to increase, but however, government should earmark that revenue to public health. There is lack of resources for healthcare in Nigeria, and that this tax should just not be collected and then lumped into the federation account, and then you see governments sharing it to do other things, but that it should be used to address the problem that industry has created. And in terms of other ways to look at it, it's also that this is a campaign to also promote product reformulation. In fact, what we've seen in the case of UK and South Africa is that once these taxes were introduced, because their own tax were volumeric, it's based on the volume and the content of sugar, companies then began to reformulate their products and create healthy products. So it's a win-win for the population. It's a win-win for government. It's a win-win for all the people. That's exactly why this is extremely so important.
You called it health promotion levy, and that's where I'm headed now. Already there's a 10% tax in place. Is your organization and perhaps others that are embarking on this campaign looking at the accountability component of what is already in place? And in whatever document that you're going to be presenting, perhaps, for legislation purposes, what measures are you proposing as well for that fund to be properly channeled to the health sector, areas in the health sector that are in dire need of this type of additional health promotion levy?
Thank you. Yeah, so we are not just saying these taxes should be increased. We are also engaging government, and we are engaging government at all levels on how to manage and better utilize, this tax or levy, depending on the language the government decides to use. Yes, we are currently tracking how much the Nigerian government had collected from the 10 naira per litre that was introduced in 2021. We are trying to engage the customs. We are trying to engage with the Ministry of Finance to be able to look at in terms of the size of what has been collected and what they be used for. And of course, to build our argument for earmarking of the taxes. We're again looking at the Custom Act. We're looking at the National Health Act of 2014. And of course, we're also looking at the possibility of also getting a non-communicable diseases fund, where what we call the sin taxes can be warehoused for public health in Nigeria. The sin taxes are sugar, salt, tobacco. All those pro-health taxes can well be coordinated and managed to improve health outcomes in our country.
All right. There are so many areas to touch on this particular topic, but we must leave it there for now. And just to quickly add that if you're whatever percentage of increase that you're proposing, the alternatives to a healthy lifestyle are not necessarily cheaper as well. Some of them are way more expensive than the SSBs. So you may want to be more strategic, I think outside the box in the percentage increase of tax that you're proposing. However you look at it. Okay, go ahead, but respond just briefly to that.
I think the alternative is extremely cheaper. The best alternative is water.
Okay.
Drink water and drink water and drink water.
All right. Point taken. Thank you so much, sir. We've been speaking with the Executive Director, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, Mr. Olufemi Akibodi. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you so much.
And just to add that we invited as well the other side to this conversation that's representative of the manufacturers of SSBs, but they're unable to join us, and we hope that they'll be joining us before the end of the week. Up next on the program, we'll be looking at creativity and sports, an interesting combination. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Mobike Chigbogu joins us. We know him as Coachee. I know you've probably binged on his content on social media. Well, he's right here with us on the Morning Brief, joining us virtually. Coachee, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'm surprised they are not coaching the Super Eagles. What's going on? The match is in a few hours. Did you decide to stay back? Are you doing work from home? Because we expect that you'll be there coaching our Super Eagles with all of that, your finesse and demure. What's going on?
Nothing is going on. I already left instructions to to the guys in camp.
I like that. I like that. Well, it's good to have you on the show. I must say we particularly love your content. It speaks to just how versatile and creative Nigerians are. But, on just a lighter note, and I know this conversation will be on a lighter note all through, how tough is it to be a coach? We're always expecting the most from coaches? We say you have to do, you didn't win that match, but for you, how tough has it been to coach your very gifted and talented team members?
The fun fact is that I'm actually not really considered like playing character. Well, I think I know what it feels like also, like, being a coach, because I've worked on that coaches for as long as I can remember. I've been playing academy football since I was like 7, so I've been with like a couple coaches, and I think I understand what the pressure of like being a coach is like. It's not easy. It's not.
Clearly, we can see it's not easy. And I'm talking about you as Coachee in your content. That's what I mean, not you as a coach in real life. But I'd like you to talk us through how this became a thing for you in the first place. You've given us a background as to you playing academy football. But when did this really become a thing? And why did it become a thing, Coachee?
Okay, this all started, I think, back 2020, late 2020, early 2021. So it was all coming from like my personal experiences, navigating like the whole footballing system in Nigeria, trying to like go on to like, to the greener pasture of football. It was a lot of like hurdles and a lot of like ups and downs. So I think at the during the COVID period, I was supposed to travel for a trial program. So, but the COVID thing happened, and that time frame of nothing happening, it gave me gave me time to go over the whole footballing system in Nigeria, how it's been affecting and how it was affecting me at the time of trying to secure good deals abroad and all of that. And I now found it to be that, it's not really like a lot of people are looking at the Nigerian footballing issues from the top side, whereas the major issues are coming from the grassroots, because we have a lot of unqualified coaches that are, taking on these jobs in the grassroots, nurturing players without the actual knowledge of football, what football actually is. I think that's where the whole idea came on, and the vision was to also like tackle these issues, bring attention to what's going on in the grassroots football, and then try to find solutions to this. Because this, if we're talking about problems that we are facing in the country as a footballing nation, it boils down to deep down to the grassroots level. Because if you look at the grassroots level, I'm telling you, over 90%, over 95% of grassroots coaches are not qualified. They are not qualified. So this is like, when when you send someone who doesn't know about teaching. And the grassroots, the grassroots level of football is where like is the most important, development time of these footballers. And when you leave them in the hands of coaches who do not know nothing, they have absolutely zero, knowledge about what the game is talking about, you're breeding disaster. So I think this is that was the whole idea was of like trying to bring attention to that.
Apparently, this is a serious conversation. I know that you try to make it as fun as possible. We're a footballing nation. We love sports. We love football. We love. Some people have argued that whether we're a footballing nation or we're not a footballing nation. But I know that when the Super Eagles are playing, just like we did on Saturday, and we're going to do today in Kigali, Rwanda, all attention as much as possible will be there, and it brings us joy because it is one moment where we forget all the problems that politicians has brought us into. It is one moment where we're not thinking about tribe, ethnicity, or religion. So that unification, that unifying point is quite important to all of us. And that's why we support when we have to support. We criticize hard when we want to criticize hard because of how important the role of these footballers are. And that is where you've chosen to create your content from. So you've identified grassroots as a challenge in terms of the capacity of the people that are coaching the boys. So if you were to be specific as to some of the things they are doing wrong, these ones that you call quote unquote ignorant coaches, what will it be?
First, there's a lot of areas where they are getting it like wrong. First of all, regards to approach to understanding what that the developmental parts of these players, that they are at the developmental stage, their approach to the whole footballing system, training wise, psychological, approaches to these players. It's a lot, but I'll just cut the short here, because these are the major parts of it all. I don't know if you get to their approach, their orientation they have, and the orientation they are impacting, they are creating.
So do you have Bobike, do you have my apologies, do you have like an example of what you notice? I know you display them in your skits for persons who haven't seen your skit. So maybe you can give us, that's why I asked for a specific example. I know you try to maybe give a compound approach to what you're talking about, maybe something specific. They are doing this that is not right. That's why I'm saying this is an important conversation, even though you make it as humorous as possible.
Okay, you see coaches who they have a team, and they have people coming, they have players who are training under them week in, week out, and you'll be shocked that when it's time for like matches to happen or maybe competitions to happen, they start sourcing for players outside. They start making calls to different places to come, seeking for players to come play for them. You understand? In tournaments, in matches. Whereas you've had boys that have been training week in, week out, who deserve to play those games, but you leave them aside and start making calls to whoever, mercenaries, to come in and help you in games. That is one. And then when it comes to the training aspect, a lot of Nigerian coaches, tactically, when it comes to grassroots level, tactically, a lot of them are not very sound. So they all believe in physicality. They just want these players running. Like, you could come to trainings and you see some coaches asking players to do as much as 40 laps.
What?
Before a training starts, like 40, 50, goes on, and like, that is just what they all know about, like, when it comes to like training these players. Like, it's all about running, physicality, the orientation is just like very bizarre.
You know what, Coachee? I'm not your go-to football enthusiast. Kyle and Jeffrey are, gradually turning me into one. But one thing that I have become in the last 8 hours or a little more is a Coachee convert. I've been binging on your content, and I must say that it's a product of someone who is thinking outside the box. Speaking of which, let's have a feel of something that you have also done recently, and then we'll continue the conversation. So just hang on there. We'll be right back.
Inside this square now, they go give you, I want me to control them inside this square. You understand? Let's go. Jesus, what type of plane is this? You? God forbid. God forbid. Footballer, God forbid. You don't feel control boys inside this big space. Give me more. You don't feel control boys inside this big space. God forbid. Footballer. See, God. They make me talk too much. Come, take. Just sign here. I'm Coachee. Let them retirement. Sign here before I know what. See, you better just retire. I don't want to see you anywhere where they play football. Just retire, no need. Is that why you're here?
That was a catastrophic retirement. So, Coachee, here it is. You're carving a niche for yourself. This is, an untapped area as far as creativity and sports is concerned. And your bio says that you're an athlete. So that's, somebody who has a sports background now drawing on creativity as well. So walk us through your thinking process, how you come up with these ideas, and how challenging it is really, to create this content, how you access the stadium and all of that.
Okay, when it comes, let me start with the whole idea. Like, ideas, how I come up with these things. A lot of persons, I see comments sometimes, a lot of persons are like, "Yeah, wait till you smoke," all this kind of things. It's actually funny, but someone that has been like I said, I've been playing academy football since I was like 7, so I've been around in and out of like football for a very long time. So the funny thing is that I've never had to sit down one day and be like, "Oh, I want to think about the contents that I want to do now." Like this whole idea just comes to me very naturally, and when I speak to a lot of people as well, they're like, "Are you not worried you're gonna like run out of like content?" And like some other places, I'm intrigued that like you still have this thing going, still in the football thing, like you've not run out of content. And it's funny because football is actually very vast, and like I said, it just all comes to me naturally, and I don't even bother about like, oh, what to come up with next and all. So all of that comes up to me naturally. So having access to where like I make this content, I make most of my contents like in most of them are in Port Harcourt, and some other are in Lagos. The management of the complexes that I use have been like very helpful as well, and I'm really like thankful to them for like always granting us access to be able to complete this magic. I think that was like last question. I don't know if there's any other question.
Yeah, and I was just drawing some sort of inspiration from your story. You played academy football, and the dream for most footballers at that level is to play for the national team, play for big clubs, be in the same room with the stars. You didn't go that route, quite, but you still ended up at the destination of sorts. You've had encounters with Victor Boniface, Victor Osimhen, Mr. Easy has been in your skit, and I can go on and on. It's quite inspirational that most times the route people want to take might not be the route that will get them to the destination, but never stop, never hang your boots in that sense. You're still doing that. I don't know if you agree with me, if you've seen it that way, but I'd like to drag you into football. Anyway, because you are Coachee, and there's a big match for us in Nigeria today. There have been lots of back and forth with the Super Eagles, and I want to know, for you, would you still like to play for the Super Eagles? Is it a dream you still have?
Obviously, that's something like if that opportunity comes, I will gladly like both hands and legs, because that's actually been like a dream, like a long time dream of mine. But like regardless, I'm really happy where I am. I'm really happy where I am. I've also found another way around all of this. So yeah, it's something I would probably intend.
Well, Nigerians will drag you if you miss a goal. But speak to us. What wing? What position do you play? Are you a goalkeeper, a defender, midfielder, striker? What particular position do you play?
I'm an attacker, like anywhere in the front.
How many goals do you have already?
which of how many goals I have?
Yes, to your credit.
Ronaldo has 901. Do you have 1,005?
Ronaldo did not work. Now, do you know how many goals you score? Like in a week, you score like 1,000 goals. It's not recorded. They just share your friends. So, if you want to talk about go catalog, Ronaldo the learn, but it's not recorded.
Okay. I'm looking at this particular video. So let's be clear. This is your stomach. Is it real or is part of the skit?
It's props actually. I think another thing people. Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, another thing people find interesting is that like when they see me and they're like, "Oh, you're actually a calm person."
Oh, really?
You expect me like
that's so cool.
They're like, "Oh, you're not loud, you're not this." All of that's just being me, like being in character. The whole Coachee thing is just being me in character, but like,
okay.
Besides all of that, I'm not very
Just a few more things as we begin to wind down. Mobike, on this particular one, I see that you're combating fake coaching, if you will. That's how perhaps to summarize what you do with your skits. But as Kayode has said, let's go back to the match that we're having this evening in Kigali, Rwanda. Guavon has made us proud, and yet again, he's going to be responsible for what happens this evening. If you were to give him any advice, what will it be? Because we need all the maximum point that we can get. We need to just check that in our bucket list.
If I have to, if there's one advice I have to give him, I think he should maintain the unity he has in his dressing room. I don't know. I think he's found a way. The difference I've seen is that he's found a way to make these players come together and want to play for him. Because that's one thing that's one very big thing you should go on for as a coach. Having a unity and you taking charge of your dressing room, bringing a unity to your team, and making the players wanting to play for you. Because if these players do not have that motivation to want to play for you, I mean, we also how they played in Rio. It was a different thing from what we've seen since February. These are players that that they are playing. You can feel it that these guys are they want to play. They are giving it up. So whatever he's doing, that's keeping that unity, that's making these players want to give their best. I think he should continue with that.
So if all these elements are in place for our match against the Wasps of Rwanda, how easy will it be to defeat them? And in addition to that, Coachee, I'd like you to make a prediction. What would the scoreline be today?
Okay. For the scoreline prediction today, I pitched the Eagles to win by 2. It's an away game. It's away games are usually tough, when it comes to especially when it comes to African football. So I'm pitching the Eagles 2-0 against the Rwandans.
How easy will it be to defeat them?
Easy. Ordinarily, when it comes to football on paper, I don't see anybody on that group. We don't even need a coach to beat anybody on that group when it comes to football on paper. But this is football; anything can happen. So Rwanda is not, for as long as I remember, it's not any match near the Nigeria Super Eagles. So it's ordinary would be an easy walkover for us, but like I said, this is football, and we have really had it easy over the past months. So we are going to win. I'm certain we are going to win, but it might not come off as easy for us, but we're definitely.
Well, we need all of the wins we can get, but we have to thank you so much. You've been winning, and we are happy to see that. We wish you the very best, Mobike Chigbogu, aka Coachee, aka Ronaldo they learn where I did, aka 1,000 goals per week. Content creator. Thank you so much for your time, and again, wish you all of the best.
Thank you.
There you go. I should start tallying my goals, guys, because I think I'm in rate of 2,000 goals per week in my dreams.
It's about competitive football.
Right.
Some of us scored so many goals that we can't remember nothing about those goals. That's why I wanted to be footballers. But at the end of the day, those who have made it have made it. Ronaldo is leading that pack right now, 900 in competitive football. Look, some of these records they look like they are just numbers until you get involved in competitive football, and then you really understand what it takes. But tonight is a night where we will be facing Rwanda, okay, and ensuring that we do the best we can to consolidate on what happened at the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium. So pray for the Eagles, pray for Guavon, pray for all the players. Let's get those numbers. And we are a big footballing nation. I'll keep that argument on because that is the only place where we don't have all the troubles that we have in our country. We'll just keep that conversation for another day and we'll celebrate our win and our victory. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
Well, some of us will be dancing on the pitch while we cheer the goal scorers along. And, of course, cheering the Super Eagles as they take on the Wasps of Rwanda. Thank you so much. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Kilka.
Sunrise Daily is next, so we keep scoring goals right here on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Fikulu. Goodbye.